to artificial intelligence, robo-advising, and supervision in insurance. This webinar is presented by Astrid Bertrand, who just finished her PhD, having been hosted by Télécome Paris, Polytechnique of Paris also, and also the Prudential Control and Resolution Authority. You probably all very well know because it is a supervisory body at the Banque de France. Astrid Bertrand holds an engineering degree from École Centrale de Lyon and a Master of Science in Sustainability and Social Innovation from the Haute École d'Études Commerciales. Her thesis focused on explanation of artificial intelligence systems in the domain of finance. In the context of anti-money laundering and life insurance, she studied the potential of artificial intelligence explanations to manipulate the trust of decision subjects and the human-centric pathways to develop explainable artificial intelligence interfaces that can improve user empowerment. The logic she will discuss today is at the core of the current mutations taking into our industry, all the more at a time when we designate a new Chief Data and Analytics Officer who will further expand the core scope towards advanced analytics and enable us to make better use of data and take advantage in a secure context of the latest advance in artificial intelligence and support data-driven decisions. As per usual, the webinar will last 90 minutes maximum from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Paris time. If you have any understanding questions, please ask your question as you go during the presentation of Astrid. For more substantive questions, more intellectual questions, please ask them at the end of the presentation. Astrid, many thanks to have accepted to make this presentation. And you have now the floor, let us say for 40 to 60 minutes. Feel free to take the time you need for your presentation. Thereafter, we will open the discussion to the audience and we will close the webinar when questions will have been exhausted and at latest at 4:30 p.m. Thank you, Astrid. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Philippe, for this introduction. Just verifying that you can all see my screen now. Can you see my screen correctly?
Yes.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not a presentation.
Sorry.
Do you see it, Zing?
Non, pas encore. Sinon, ça va
Yes.
C'est bon.
It's okay.
Voilà.
Great.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you for having me today, and I will present to you my research, which focused on the discipline of human-computer interaction. And more specifically, I will present today the research that I've done with the ACPR, so the supervisory body in finance in France. And my thesis, as Philippe explained, focused on the explainability of AI. So how do we provide explanations to users of artificial intelligence? The needs of those users may be very different according to the application in hand. And today I will speak of two applications in finance. The first is robo-advisors in the life insurance sector. And as some of you may know, life insurance in France has a particularity to be a very common vehicle for savings, contrary to other countries. And the second application that I will talk about is anti-money laundering, in which AI has a tremendous potential to increase the efficiency of our anti-money laundering systems, but we need explanations to make AI more transparent. So we'll first start with a very short introduction to the concept of explainability, then speak of the first application, robo-advisors in life insurance, and then go to the anti-money laundering sector. So to explain the concept of explainability, I want to delve first into the concept of the AI black box. So the technology behind ChatGPT is a neural network. And if we look at the individual units that compose neural networks, it's what you can see here on the screen. It's called a perceptron. And we understand very well the mathematical operations that occur in that individual unit. So actually, when we understand this math perfectly, it takes as inputs, it takes a couple of inputs, sums them up, and then passes on the information to the next unit. But the complexity arises from the fact that those individual units are combined together, and there are millions or billions of these individual units in a neural network. And as a result, we don't really understand why these seemingly simple mathematical operations result in the behavior that we see, and hence the expression of black box, because we don't really understand what's happening inside that neural network. And arises some questions such as, does this system have biases? Is this system safe? So to answer those questions, the field of explainability has emerged in recent years. It's not a completely new topic, but there has been a big surge in interest for the past 5 years, let's say. So if we imagine that an AI system says that someone's bank would be denied, obviously the client will have some questions, such as why was my bank loan denied? And explainable AI aims at providing such answers, answering that the loan was denied because there are too many credits in progress, or providing ways to act upon that denial, with an explanation such as that the outcome would have been different if you changed X variable. Also, the question that I focused the more in my thesis are the questions arising from the supervisor and the regulator, who wonders whether that AI system may be trustworthy, whether it may be compliant. And it's specifically important to ask how to design explainable AI in this context to answer these questions, because we have to have in mind the different laws that are applicable here, such as customer protection, the protection from financial crime, so laws in anti-money laundering. And we also have to take into account the human biases and their needs to design explainable AI, which will be truly useful in the context in which they're applied. So this is the question that I pursued in my thesis, and that I will illustrate in the two applications. I just briefly want to pause to show what explainability, XAI is short for explainability, what can it look like concretely. So as this illustration shows, there has been many different ways to provide explanations. Those depends on the data that is used by the AI model, on the actual model behind like the AI system, and on the different explanation approaches and concepts that the literature has provided us. We can just pause on two important concepts here, noting that one explanation approach has been to provide local explanations, meaning that those explanations focus on one specific decision, such as why was John's bank loan denied. And global approaches, on the contrary, have focused more on providing explanations that so explanations that explain the whole AI systems, such as in general, when are bank loan denied in my company or in that specific segment of customers, and what do they even more concretely look like? Well, it kind of depends on many factors, but it can be directly applied to text. For instance, here, like on the left, the technique that is used is a feature-based model, because it highlights the features, in this case words, that were more important for the AI model to make its prediction. In the middle with the huskies, it's a saliency map that we can see. And in that case, the technique that is used is well, a mask which highlights the pixels in that case, which were most important for the model to make its prediction. And then there are all the more tailored explanations solutions that have focused on providing interfaces to users with different types of explainability solutions. So I'm hearing a little bit of background noise. I don't know if someone probably has his mic open. Anyway, I will continue. So the first application that I wanted to talk about is the use of explainability in the realm of in the realm of life insurance, using more specifically robo-advisors. So in this context, we have certain legal provisions, and particularly the duty of information and advice, which require a life insurance provider to formalize the reasons for the appropriateness of the proposed contract in relation to the needs of the customer. And so this can be understood as having different objectives, different regulatory objectives. The first one is to allow the customer who wants to take a life insurance product what is the product about and why this product is good for him. The second is to allow the same customer to make a choice, so to calibrate his trust in the proposal and to choose whether to accept or to reject the proposal. And the third one, more indirect one, is to strengthen the responsibility of the insurance distributor by requiring them to provide in writing those explanations, therefore leaving traceability and strengthening accountability of those insurance distributors. However, as discussed with experts in life insurance, I realized that the explanations that are currently provided in robo-advisors, so life insurance that is provided online, so those explanations are currently either nebulous or quite generic, meaning that they don't really make a link between the characteristics of a user and the characteristic of a contract, therefore making this this duty of information and advice quite abstract. The second observation that I had in that field is that there is an there is a tendency to use more AI everywhere, and AI in life insurance holds the promise to make more tailored recommendations, also more quicker recommendations, and therefore it's likely to foresee that AI will be more prevalent in life insurance, and specifically in online life insurance in the coming years. So there's a need of real-time explanations to accompany this surge in the use of AI in the online life insurance context. So to summarize the objectives of this study, what we really wanted to understand here is the role of the explanations to empower customers of robo-advisors. So we asked, what are the roles of the explanations in financial investment to protect customers? And how effective are different representations of explanations to meet those expectations? And specifically, we tested different formats. Some were more textual, some were more graphical. It was a little bit a combination of the two. So like the graphical explanations had some textual element in them. The graphical ones, the textual ones had some graphical elements in them, but we kind of wanted to test which format is more effective to empower customers in that context. So we first run a pilot study with experts in life insurance and more specifically supervisors. So for that, I ran a few interviews with supervisors on the one hand, and also novice users who had, for the most part, not used life insurance, but who would be interested to use it at some point. And that was also useful for us to know a little bit more the needs that customer may have, and put them in perspective with the requirements that the supervisors told us. And as a second step, we did a quantitative study where we wanted to really test the effectiveness of different formats of explanations in a more quantitative way. So to conduct that study, we first built simplified robo-advisors that we called RoBEX, as it stands for Robo-Advisor Explainable. And this robo-advisor had different steps. So the design of this interface was based on what we can find on the market. So I studied a few other robo-advisors to see what was the main tendencies, and try to take the same the same big different steps. I also had interviews with supervisors who were experts in that field, who could tell me what were the most important features to keep in that interface. So when you enter the robo-advisor, the first page that you would see would be a profiling questionnaire, and that would be useful to just know what the user's financial objective would be, financial project would be. So we asked for questions about the user's objective, but also the user's risk aversion and his knowledge and experience, for instance. And the second step would be to have a recommendation. So based on the user's profile, RoBEX would make one recommendation out of 5, which we made up, but based on they were simplistic but realistic enough, and that was based on with discussion that I had with supervisors. And the principle is that the light blue was on the left was the most secure proposal, and the dark blue was the most risky proposal. And
I'm sorry to interrupt you shortly, but I can't see your screen anymore.
That's weird.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The screen just disappeared. We should try. Can you
still
again your presentation, and then we control if there is a problem. We will jump in and replace you.
Oh, it's okay now. It's okay.
It's okay.
Okay, thanks for noticing me. So the one particularity of RoBEX was that it had this explanation element, So in contrary to existing robo-advisors, it provided these explanations where all the users' characteristics that led to more risk were on the right of the screen, and all of the characteristics that led the proposal to be more secure were on the left of the screen. And so these explanations were computed using a classical explainability method that is called SHAP. And SHAP calculates the weights of each user's characteristic in the proposal that was made. And then so we proceeded to the experiment, so the quantitative experiment. So we recruited 256 participants using a crowdsourcing platform called Prolific, and so those participants were directed to ROBEX. They went through the profiling questionnaires, and then they received different types of explanations. So first, they received different types of recommendations. Some people received an incorrect one. So this meant that the recommendation was much too risky compared to their expressed needs, or much too secure compared to their needs again. And then participants were also distributed into different conditions of explanations. Some received no explanations at all. Some received a graphic static explanation, which is the one that I just showed you. Some a graphical mutable explanation, which had some interactive elements in it. And some a dialogic explanations in which users could see the same elements, but they were provided in a textual format. And then users made a choice. So either they accepted the recommendation that was made by ROBEX or they rejected it. And then we had a post-it question to measure different other things, such as whether they understood the proposal that was made. So in this slide, I show the different types of explanations that we tested. So A is the one that I just showed you. So it's the graphical static one. B had more interactive elements, so it meant that you could act upon some of the characteristics. For instance, you could change the amount that you wanted to invest, and you would see the characteristics sometimes changing, and at least you would see the weights of those characteristics change as you change them. And C is the dialogic explanation. So there were predefined, we had designed predefined questions for users to click on, and they would receive a response in a conversational format. To be noted that on the substance, the information that is provided in the three explanations is the same. And so what we found is that explanations did not have much in the calibration of trust or the calibration of reliance, to our surprise. So for instance, if we look at the trust as measured by self-reported trust, so it's the subjective trust that users expressed, we could see that people trusted more. We could see that people were more able to differentiate between the bad and the good proposal in the control condition, so meaning when they didn't receive any explanation. When they received a dialogic or a graph mutable explanation, it was not so clear that there was a difference in terms of trust for the incorrect and incorrect proposal, for the correct and incorrect proposal. Then for reliance, we could also see that people in the control condition and in the graph mutable condition were able to differentiate between the correct and incorrect proposal. And for the comprehension, so the understanding of the recommendation that was made to them, we didn't see any significant improvement when participants were given explanations. And the other results that we had is that dialogic explanations do increase the subjective trust in the proposal, but when it's the incorrect proposal, so meaning that dialogic explanations tend to make people over-reliant, over-trusting, not over-reliant, on the proposal that is made to them. For reliance, we could not make a conclusion in terms of significance, so we could not make that conclusion. Although looking at the graphs, it's quite tempting to do so. So the takeaways that we have is that first, conversational explanations can actually have a misleading role and persuade users more than graphical explanations could do. And well, this is particularly concerning in the era of ChatGPT, and where conversational chatbots are everywhere. And second, we also saw that legal explanations are not always useful for consumers, and they are not also neutral. Sometimes they can be actually harmful or at least misleading. So these findings sort of debunk the idea that the consumer is a homo economicus, responsible consumer, and the ideas from self-governance theories that assume that explanations would suffice in order to solve that huge information asymmetry that exists in the realm of life insurance. Those conclusions may also be explained by the fact that a subscription process is super short. It's 10 minutes, 15 minutes if you take your time. And considering that some users may have absolutely no financial pre-existing knowledge, you can see how hard it is for them to be able to be in the position to detect an error or to rightly calibrate their trust. So the vulnerability of users was striking in that context, and the idea that simple explanations can solve that issue is quite idealistic. That said, the financial world is not the Wild West. It's regulated and supervised, and explanations still serve one purpose. It is the accountability of intermediaries. By having to provide those explanations in writing, it leaves a trace and it strengthens the responsibility of intermediaries in case of control. So now I want to change a little bit topic and talk about the role of explanations, this time not for consumers, but for supervisors, and in the realm of anti-money laundering. So just to provide a little bit of context, in Europe, there is 200 billion in criminal funds that circulate every year, and only 1% of criminal funds are actually confiscated. So it's fair to say that current anti-money laundering systems are largely ineffective. And in addition to that, they are extremely costly. They are also rule-based, contrary to AI systems, which makes them also very transparent. And so AI can probably improve anti-money laundering systems, but as it's not inherently transparent, it creates a regulatory uncertainty. So explainability, the role of explainability for anti-money laundering would be to be able to use AI in that context. And if you consider this black box AI that would take some financial data as input and output an anti-money laundering alert. Many questions could be raised by a case handler who would ask, why was the alert generated? A data scientist would want to know how to debug the system, and a supervisor would want to know whether the system is compliant. And so we focused on the supervisor's needs. We also explored the legal requirements of supervisors in terms of AI justifiability in anti-money laundering. And we here refer more to justifiability than explainability, because supervisors expect a justification rather than an explanation that an AI system complies with a certain legal standard or an objective. So justification, by definition, makes reference to an external document, such as a law or an external objective. So it's by nature extrinsic, contrary to explanations. And so the questions that we had in that context were, what are the needs of supervisors in terms of justifiability of AI systems? Also, we wanted to understand a little bit better the current auditing practices that supervisors had in that context. We also wanted to understand, so what were the practices and what were their socio-economical contexts or socio-technical contexts. And this study also had a legal dimension, because we asked, how does AI opacity conflict with the requirements in anti-money laundering? So we really wanted to pin down what exactly is the problem in AI opacity with regard to existing laws in that context. So we used a hybrid methodology, mixing human-computer interaction methods and legal approach. We conducted workshops with participants from the ACPR and from a large bank, Crédit Agricole in that context. And we also performed a compliance assessment of 2 AI case studies. And those 2 AI applications in anti-money laundering were, first, using AI to improve the detection of money laundering and financial terrorism. So in that case, the AI system comes in addition to the existing rule-based system of the bank and provides additional alerts to the alerts of the rule-based systems. And the second use case that we had was using AI in order to prioritize alerts that are most important and automatically close the alerts that are not important. So the first result was the results that we had considering a legal approach. So we asked, what provisions in anti-money laundering laws does AI opacity conflict with? And the first conflict that we found is that supervisors have to verify the adaptation of the system, of the AI system, to the bank's specific risks. And having a very opaque system prevents you from doing that, because you really want to understand whether human and machine criteria are aligned in that context. So need a little bit of explanations. And I like this quote from one of the participants and in the ACPR, who said that we're going to end up with this like chickens with a knife. We won't be able to assess the adaptation to the risk. The second reason why AI opacity could pose a problem in that context is that banks have to carefully examine all transactions that go through their system, and therefore they have to be able to detect if there are anomalies. So having a very opaque system prevents you also from answering that question of whether the system is in fact able to detect all anomalies. Then there is also a requirement to perform enhanced vigilance and SARS, meaning that when an alert is raised, then you have to understand what the alert is about. Similarly, in suspicious activity reports, there is an obligation of quality of that report. So analysts have to understand what the alert is about. And another provision that conflicts with the black box AI is that banks have internal control requirements and therefore have to be able to foresee incidents and have control over the purpose and operation of any device used. So there again, AI opacity partially prevents you from making sure that you can do that. And then you have to allocate material and human resources. So in this case, it's a question of understanding whether human expertise and AI systems are correctly balanced, and it's also a matter of making sure that the collaboration between the human and the AI is smooth. So therefore, there's a need of a certain explainability for the transition between humans and AI. We also, the other result that we had is a list of the supervisor's needs in terms of explainability and justifiability. We noted that there is a general need for supervisors to just understand what the AI system is about. So it's not particularly, it's not explainability, but it's more justifiability of how it's implemented, what kind of data it uses, what kind of model it is. And so it also raises a question of having supervisors who are hybridly skilled, both and have both the domain expertise but also the technical skills. Supervisors also need to demonstrate that the AI tools that they are using themselves are legitimate and therefore need explainability of their own models. One of the most pressing needs, of course, is to measure the global efficiency of the system that is built with AI and to measure the added value of AI in general. Then to also establish the reprehensibility of a sampled failure case. So meaning that the supervisors have AI tools themselves which enables them to sample failure cases. So cases where the bank failed to detect a money laundering suspicion. And in that case, they need to go back to the reprehensibility of that mistake to the whole system, whether that mistake was something in isolation or whether it's a failure of the system that is more reprehensible. Explainability, therefore, is also a need to understand what the scale of such a failure case in the system. And then lastly, we also pointed the fact that supervisors need explainability in order to verify and challenge the bank's own understanding of their AI systems. So to challenge the fact that analysts are in fact able to understand alerts, for instance, or that model control is demonstrated. So as a takeaway, I'll just say that in the anti-money laundering context is a very good context to illustrate the tension of using artificial intelligence in a very highly regulated environment. That current explainability techniques are incomplete for the most part in a certain sense, but they can alleviate to some extent this tension by answering to the different needs that we talked about. And lastly, it's more a point about the vocabulary that we want to use in research. But explanations in that context have a role of trial evidence, so have a role of proof to be used in justifications of AI systems, meaning that, as I said before, justifications are extrinsic by nature, but they need to be reinforced by explanations which really speak to the core, to the intrinsic behavior of the AI system. Okay, well, I'll stop there, but thank you very much for your attention, and I'll be happy to take any question.
Thank you so much, Astrid. It was very fascinating presentation, and also sometimes slightly surprising, because one would have thought, of course, that a supervisor have no need to look so much to explainability. It's much easier to use artificial intelligence in order to detect some anomalies, because you are not looking at normally a secure result, but only indicate who you should look more in depth. And you realize that the problem of explainability is not only a problem for some people just having to determine behavior, being exposed to the risk of losing a client, but also for regulator, even if supported by a strong regulation. And I think your explanation, and especially the last one, are very, very interesting, and just point to the fact that environment when using artificial intelligence is relatively complex. I do not enter into what you have said, but I insist on this point. Maybe there are surely many questions. Maybe I can look if there are in the conversation some questions, but I am not sure there are one. If there is no one, please just raise the hand, and sorry, I did it, and I will give you the floor. I'm sure there are many questions. Not sure you want to ask the question. I see. Bertrand, please, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Philippe. Thank you, Astrid. So I'm Bertrand. It's not Astrid Bertrand, it's Bertrand. Well, looking at the result, it looks to me over-conservatism from the regulator, which prefer being wrong but based on rules, than capturing more money laundering, for instance, but based on you don't know what. So it's a bit surprising to me. I would expect them to be happy to have, because they should compare. They should compare what the outcome of the AI compared to the let's say manual or human behavior, rather than comparing. Do we have an explanation? And if we don't have an explanation, we cannot benefit from AI. For me, AI is not 100% correct. It's just we get more information than with human behavior. So I'm a bit surprised. Or not surprised by a civil servant, I would say.
Yeah.
Sorry, Philippe.
So I didn't want to say anything about the supervisor's position on AI, because this was not the aim of this study, and I wanted to also point to the fact that it's a very challenging thing because we have very few means of assessing the effectiveness of AI in the anti-money laundering systems, and on the other hand, it represents an extremely costly thing to do from banks. Banks can't rely can duplicate the system and have AI and rule-based systems working on top of each other constantly. At some point, they will need to to combine those tools that they have. Otherwise, they just duplicate their costs and in terms of systems. So on the one hand, we have very few means of assessing what the added value of AI will be. Also because it's tricky for supervisors to compare banks, for instance, between them, because well, banks are defined by their client characteristics. So even if you find pools of banks that are similar, it will probably not really compare. And so it's very hard to find a baseline of like two similar banks that one would use AI, the other would not use AI. So this would be the context in which you could potentially calculate the added value of AI, and supervisors can't really do that either because of the sensitivity of the data they're having to deal with. So on the one hand, it's not clear that AI is a real added value, and yeah, on the other hand, AI is also a costly thing to do. So yeah, I guess it's a complex issue. I'm not sure if I answered your question correctly. Perhaps you have other ongoing questions that I'm happy to answer more precisely.
It's okay. I'm not surprised that there is no black and white answer. It's a challenging topic. But for me, again, in that context, AI, it's more you have a larger fish, a larger net to fish in the sea. So you will not be.
Yeah.
You will not capture everything, but you might capture more. You might fish more, capture more fishes. So. But that's interesting. Thank you.
I speak only for me and not for the supervisors, but I don't think they are opposed to the use of AI.
Yes, okay. I will perhaps come back on the question of Bertrand, perhaps more in depth, but then taking the position of the insurer in your case is life insurance, of course, which is not exactly, of course, the business of the reinsurance, and probably reinsurance is a little. I know that it is contested and questioned by supervisor, but less concern than life insurance. But let us, because I see that François Reynal has a question. Please, François, you have the floor. And you are on mute.
François? Yeah, we can hear you, François.
Yes. We cannot hear you.
Can you see me or no?
We see you and perfect. You hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very interesting. So actually, I had a question for you about like when you spoke a little bit about the methods that are used for explainability in AI. So of course, you mentioned sharp values that are like I guess the regular method to used in AI explainability. But I saw in one of your first slides with the image of the husky, another method which made me think about like attention flows and this type of methods used in AI. Do you think that maybe there could be like some other methods that could maybe lead to a better trust from supervisors towards AI, like maybe a new tool or new methods that you used? I don't know.
Yeah. So perhaps you're thinking of I'm not sure of the explanation technique that you had in mind. There are techniques that try to understand what is the role of like one neuron, for instance, in a neural network, which is called neuron activation maximization. But I'm not sure. Is that what you had in mind and that you saw in my slide, or maybe you can correct me later. I just wanted to say that the reason that we focused on SHAP is that we wanted to use this type of approach that is a feature-based approach, which principle is to compute the weights of the different inputs and rank them in the rank of importance to their contribution to the output. And Shapley value is one of the many methods that you have to do that. The advantage of SHAP is that it has a Python library that is very easy to use. So I'd say that it's a very easy to use method, and the reason we used it is that the aim of our experiment was not at all focusing on the robustness of the technique, but more on the format of the explanation. So we had no incentive of using a more or a different technique. And I would say that in terms of needs, of answering the needs of users, feature-based explanations are often the one that we need the most, because it's very intuitive in terms of it really matches our human needs to point the finger at the parameter that had the most impact in the decision. That said, it's not necessarily the case in every context. So, for instance, in the context of the bank loan, counterfactual explanations would be better, because you want to see what would be the impact, how could you change the outcome by what is the minimal change to have the other outcome. So the need here is different. I don't think that regulators have regulators are technically neutral. They don't have any preference for one specific kind of AI model. They don't have a preference for one specific kind of explanation model. And so now it's a scientific question, whether the choice of the explanation method that you'll use is. So Shapley values have limitations, because we, for instance, one of the hypotheses that they make is that all inputs are independent, which is usually not the case. So yeah, I'd say it's a scientific debate, but not a regulatory one. The regulators are, of course, very concerned by the fact that explanations may not be truthful and may not truthfully account for the real behavior of the AI system. So I think now, bearing in mind that the scientific literature itself hasn't solved that issue, of course, it's a matter of what can we best do. In terms of the deepest models that we have out there, and the models of like ChatGPT and the LLMs, I think there are very interesting things to follow with the concept of mechanistic interpretability, which does not look at the activation of individual neurons, but rather looks at what in that neural network in terms of feature contributed to the outcome. So yeah, but that's another domain, the domain of large language models.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, please, I look if there are other questions. Don't hesitate. We benefit from the competence of Astrid, and I just encourage you to ask the question you have in mind. If you don't have, I have just a question, Astrid. In fact, when from the point of view of a company, if I want to target a subset of clients which are not currently clients, but that may become clients, of course, that can use artificial intelligence in order to target them, for example, on the basis of the financial information I am owning on the side of the bank, for example, if I am a bank insurer. And sure, it's not true, and most of the person I will target thanks to the artificial intelligence will not become client. There may be other product I don't know. And, of course, this is fully true, but but it's not a special problem not being able to explain why artificial intelligence selected this subset, except if I am discovering after many rounds that each time I use artificial intelligence is wrong, and each time I use just very human information I own myself, it's relatively efficient, and therefore my question is can be the similar if I want to control some operations. Control is not deciding. If I want to control, in this first step of the control, if I use artificial intelligence in order to target potential person being suspect, explainability is not so much my concern, or I am wrong in saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it really depends on the type of AI that you're using. For instance, you could imagine that you use an AI system that is that enables you to see all your clients and to see like the different clusters of clients that you have, and that and perhaps you would use that to zoom in some clusters, and then using your own expertise, you would find that a certain client looks like is more at risk of money laundering or financing terrorism. Then, so in that case, intelligence artificial may be used only to map clients and to like see to have a certain distance between clients calculated so that they reflect anomalies or consistent behaviors. So in that case, you would heavily rely on your own expertise to investigate afterwards about the potential suspiciousness of one client. So yes, indeed, like if you imagine that context, explainability is maybe not what you need. Perhaps explainability is partially needed still, because you would need to understand why this cluster. I mean, what kind of cluster is that one? I mean, how did the AI map those clients based on which features? But yeah, I mean, as a normal conclusion in human-computer interaction, I would say it heavily depends on the context, of course, and for any application and design of an explainable AI method, you first need to assess the context that you have at hand, and then think of the need for explainability, and then think of the method that would be useful to apply.
I have to just say I was on mute. Okay, please, other point, question, concern, remarks you would have. I don't see hand raised, but maybe I should just expect some of you having more questions on your side. Of course. I don't see your some hand which are raised, then unfortunately. Then I will have a further question on explainability, which is of course we need in any case, if we want good results, to be sure to have understand what artificial intelligence is providing to us. But on the other hand, when having looked at artificial intelligence, do you think there is a major difference between traditional statistics? I am not a specialist of supervision of insurance because I have never been on the side of supervisors, but I have been as a former civil servant working on tax issues, and of course we had some statistics that we had a profile of people we would like to control and people we don't think we need to control them. And then we had some very classical tools, statistical tools. In your work you have done, do you think there is a major difference when using classical limited number of statistical tools in order to make this job and artificial intelligence? And then what would be your opinion on the advantage? No, not the problem then, but the advantage of it's a personal view. I would like to hear from you a personal experience on what artificial intelligence can provide to us.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, on difference, I think that of course the finance world has a lot of expertise in statistics, and that they use AI, but they don't call it AI, and in some ways AI is already widespread in the actuarial community and is really involved in the day-to-day work of statisticians that work in finance. It's just that they use models that they don't like to call AI, and I can understand why, because they're shallow models. So it's also models that are trained on data, but they're relatively shallow, so quite easy to understand, and the math behind those models is perfectly understood. And I'd say that there is a threshold, though, in terms of the scale of the model of the AI model that we can use, and in terms, so the recent years have seen the use of much deeper models and of neural networks more specifically. So neural networks, contrary to other more classical models, have not been used a lot in statistics or in finance, and I would say that explainability has not so much been a question so far when using the not neural network models. Also because the community has understands very well how to use those models, so has so I don't, it's not my specialty, for instance, but by when controlling the funds of banks, they have very classical models that they would use that could be apparented to AI, but it's systems that are very, very common in the world of statistics. But the problem arises when the models are deeper, and then we need to rely on explainability. So so I don't know, from my experience and from the applications that I've seen, the banks always strive. So banks always wonder what kind of AI model will I use, and what is the added complexity that it will put on the table if I use a certain type of model, and whether but as soon as you use some sort of models such as neural networks or random forests or gradient boosting, that brings some complexity that you have to deal with some amount of explainability, or at least explainability is not all the answer. It's only a small part of the answer of how you will deal with that added complexity arising from the complexity of the models themselves. The other very important part is AI governance and also AI auditing. Explainability is only a small part of that bigger picture. So yeah, I don't know if that answers well your question, but yeah, I'd say that it really depends on the type of model, and as a key takeaway, explainability is not an on-the-shelf solution. It does not necessarily have to be part of the picture.
Okay, no, you have a balanced answer, which is normally when dealing with such complex tools. And I don't. Do you have further questions? I don't see questions on my radar screen. Perhaps we should now go to the conclusion of this webinar, which was excellent. But maybe, Astrid, if what will be your recommendation for those guys, especially our actuaries, using artificial intelligence? If you have one, maybe you could say, okay, it's too complex and there are so many, but will you have one or two recommendations to provide to us?
I have to say I'm not a specialist in the world of actuaria, so I'm not sure how to answer that question. But I would say that assessing the socio-technical context is always very important. So meaning that at the end, the implementation of an AI is a matter of humans, and so the human-computer interaction disciplines tells you that the technology that it should not be a name in itself to use a certain technological solution. You should always start with what is your actual need, and yeah. So I would follow this identity of the human-computer interaction fields and say that it's not a matter of using AI, no matter what. Is really about a matter of understanding precisely why you would need that, who would benefit from it, and then ponder on the solution that you may use to answer that specific need.
Okay, thank you so much. I would infer from what you are saying that the last recommendation will be artificial intelligence cannot replace human when concerning human decisions. And which is, of course, it can replace human for other form of human action, but not for human decision where responsibility is involved, I think. And here it's very...
Yeah, for critical human decision, it's
yes,
it's an ethical problem of using AI.
Yes,
yeah.
may raise more problems than solve ones.
Yeah, sure. Agree.
Astrid, I would like to thank you so much because it was an insightful presentation and very stimulating presentation. I think most of us will probably continue to think about it and to try to extract lessons from what you have said. Of course, it was a very rich presentation, even in terms of experience you were describing, and really I would like to thank you so much to have accepted to share your result and your conclusion with us.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much
so much.
for having me.
And for those participating, we are, as always, in time. And I wish you all a good afternoon when you are or on the same time slot than in Paris, and otherwise, of course, a good journey. Bye-bye, and thank you so much, Astrid.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks.